So, at a really high level, separate property would be your assets you acquired before you were married, and anything you inherited or were gifted during your marriage. But what you earned during your marriage, such as your job after you're married, those earnings would be considered community property.
Right. Okay. And also, I guess it's important to point out, I'm not sure how this is going to come up in our conversation, but when you have separate property, the income, what that separate property generates is also separate property.
Right.
Okay. So that's the law, but couples can rewrite that law for themselves if they think that that's a good thing to do. Right.
Right. Right. Well, it's interesting because I think most people, when they think, oh, wait, I want to make sure what's mine is mine that I'm coming into the marriage with, that would be a prenuptial agreement.
Right.
And then there's agreements that can happen after the marriage. But I think what's interesting to focus on this conversation and what we do is that most of my clients, when they're contemplating the prenuptials or postnuptials, it's in contemplation of a divorce down the road versus what we do. And they almost forget the whole estate planning part of it. And they're just worried about that. And then they're not getting through the steps of making sure the plan is consistent with what they've put forth in the prenup or postnuptial.
Yeah, that is a good point. Do you, in your practice, do prenups or postnups?
Very rarely. I think when a client comes to us to do estate planning, we would have them sign a conflict of interest waiver to do their estate plan as a married couple. And in my opinion, the prenups and postnups, the individuals signing them should have independent counsel. Every once in a while, we'll get involved in maybe something after they're married that was separate property, transferring it to community property. But in general, for a formal prenuptial agreement, postnuptial agreement, we would refer them to counsel, and then they'd come back to us with that agreement in place.
Yeah, we handle it pretty much the same. I do not do postnuptial agreements. I don't do prenuptial agreements. We refer them to a family law attorney who's familiar with, because those agreements require very specific formalities. Otherwise, they are not, legally enforceable. And
Right.
So I don't want to mess with that. I don't know the family code. I don't know all the case law, but the family law attorneys do.
Right, exactly. And they're dealing with those unwinding and being a part of a divorce procedure. So they really know where, that the pitfalls are in a different form that we may not know as estate planning experts.